Yeah, I'd say, look, if you're a large enterprise, serving small businesses, I think just focusing on that customer and that onboarding of that customer is very, very key. So, how do you create a better experience for them? Don't just think about the back office improvements of a match rate or this tool or that tool internally, but how do you create a better experience to drive more revenue? So that'd be the first thing. And then the second thing is, how do we create a consumer-like experience across all places we touch?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Risk Management Show podcast, where we explore critical trends and strategies connecting thought leaders in the risk management space. I am your host, Boris Agronovich, founder and CEO at a Global Risk Community. And our guest today is Sal Rehmetullah, a co-founder and CEO at Wars, which is a startup focused on rebuilding the financial infrastructure for SMBs. Before launching his latest fintech venture, Sal had already made a name for himself alongside his sister. Together, they scaled Stax Payments into one of the first minority-led unicorns in the industry. Congratulations on that. And now we will welcome Sal to our Risk Management Show podcast. It's my pleasure, Sal, to welcome you.
Hey, Boris, thank you so much for having me and really excited to be here.
Absolutely. So I believe that we will have a very thoughtful conversation on topic how to simplify and modernize the financial stack for small business owners who are juggling everything from restaurant operators to retail shop owners and freelancer. And maybe first and how they all probably you reimagine credit underwriting for small business, and maybe we can just explain them how to better protect themselves in this cyber security landscape. But before that, Sal, could you tell us a short story about yourself, your career path, and what brought you to where you are right now, and what you guys at Wars are up to these days?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you once again for having me. So Sal Rehmetullah, you sort of mentioned some of the past, and I think the past is sort of the best way to start the journey off and kind of getting to worth. But prior to this, we started a company called Stax Payments. And what we did for anybody that understands payment world, so think the Stripe, Square, Block, whatever it may be now, of the world, to be able to do payments. And we really focused on a customer that was doing $1 million to $100 million in revenue, right? These larger small businesses, you can call them jumbo shrimp, that needed more technology than just a physical device on their desk or just a shopping cart online. And we really wanted to figure out a way to connect all of the ways that somebody wants to take payments, and now which is known as omni-channel. How do you do that for these small businesses? And so we scale that business up, from the two of us, my sister and I, to over 500 people, over $150 million in recurring revenue. We sold the business for a little over $1 billion,
Wow.
becoming the first unicorn out of Central Florida, first brother-sister team to do it, first minority team to do it, but really serving the small businesses and finding solution sets that really needed them, to the tune of 40 billion of payment volume and over 100,000 small businesses using our platform. And so it was a great journey, a great run. And as we sort of sailed off into the sunset, one of the big challenges when you think about small businesses, at least, starting off, we're based in the United States, underwriting and risk is just difficult, right? So if you are an individual and you apply for a credit card, for us in the US, there's two major things we look at as an individual credit. We're going to look at your credit score, and we're going to look at your annual income. And if you make enough money and you have a good enough credit score, you'll get a credit card. But when you do it for a business, there's a whole different set of rules. You have to understand the P&L of the business. What were their last few years of taxes? Who else owns the business? Is there any liens, judgments, bankruptcies? Is there a good reputation of this business? Do they sell the right products as they advertise? What's their MCC code and SIC code? And how much risk did this business hold while delivering these products, goods, and services? And so when you think about that process, that same experience that a consumer may take to sign up for a credit card that takes, 30 seconds, becomes days or weeks for a business owner. And so we really try to think about how do you create a better experience for small businesses to be able to have access to capital, credit cards, bank accounts, whatever it may be that comes to financial services. How do you create a better unified experience? And that's where we started Worth. At Worth, what we focus on is imagine an entire financial application being only three fields. If you gave us your name, address, and your business identification number or your EIN number, or if you're in an international level, like your corporate ID number, we can more or less get all the financial information that's required to get you underwritten on your business. That's financials, taxes, accounting, without you ever having to type anything in. And so that power allows the enterprises to understand you as a business quickly, more effectively, and more efficiently, while allowing the business owner to not have to provide all of these documents and this back and forth that constantly happens in underwriting to really get them going on the solution. And so that's what we're doing at Worth. We've been at it for a little over 2 years. We've raised $25 million in capital. And we've sort of been on this journey with some of our largest customers, that globally serve over 186 countries and what we've been able to do in short order.
Wow. So you can say only wow, because of in your young age you already achieved so much with your first company, and then you already in the it's very high in the trenches with the second one. So yeah, I as a small business owner, I am just can confirm that is very important what you said, because I need to get all back and forth with all the documentation for small credits and stuff. But maybe can you tell us some lessons from the journey that you made with your sister about building Stax Payment into one of
Yeah.
the first kind of unicorns in the area?
Absolutely. I think, going back to the Stacks journey, um, when you think about serving customers, this sounds cliche and, you've probably read it on a billboard or a bumper sticker. Really understanding your customer is the priority within this, right? And I think the ever evolving shift that happened and or happening in the small business space has been difficult, right? So when you think about consumerization that's happened in the world, so you have everybody probably knows Netflix, right? Imagine downloading Netflix and then waiting 3 weeks to watch a movie. You would never do that, right? You wouldn't the days of installing a satellite on your house and waiting for the guy to come between 12 to 4 o'clock and half a day for them to install a cable box, that's gone, right? And that is now I download an application, I sign up, I pay $10 a month, and all of a sudden I can start watching movies. That instant gratification and that consumerization of that experience has also happened in the financial world, but really only on consumers. So you think about digital banking and Chime and the new concept of stable coins and all the things that are happening, really, really pushing the consumer side of things. But the business constantly is ignored. And the challenge with businesses is that for you to have to do all of the work to, let's just say, underwrite a $50,000 loan versus a $5 million loan is the exact same. So if you're a bank, if you have to do the same amount of work, you're not going to spend that much time doing the $50,000 loan because it's just not profitable. It's not going to make you money. It still takes the same effort as writing a $50 million loan. And so you end up people not focusing their attention there. And so for Stacks, we just saw a big market where we just could tell that there was a underserved community of small businesses that wanted technology, that were outgrowing solution sets, that a physical terminal on a desktop or a GoDaddy website, shopping cart just wasn't serving. But they didn't have enough money to go buy Oracle and SAP and do $100,000 implementation for their, 3 location store and their online presence. And so we really focused on is can we create a more unified turnkey solution set for them? And we're the first people to create an API that could connect card present, so physical payments, and card not present payments together. And the biggest thing that we wanted to create was an experience that was predicated for the small business today. And those are the same lessons we take into Worth. So, as you mentioned, a lot of the early traction that we have, when you think about risk underwriting and some of the things that we're talking about today, most people, when they build a solution set, they build for that underwriter in mind. They build for that chief risk officer in mind. They build for the chief compliance officer. We took the approach, let's build for the small business that's actually inputting this information. Let's build for the experience to collect the information from them. Because if we create a better experience for the small business to be able to give all the relevant information to the underwriter and the risk officers, it makes both people's job easier. The customer has a great experience by providing this information, and the underwriters are super happy because now they have this wealth of information to make a decision in a quick order. And so some of the big lessons that we learned along the way from the Stax journey is really understanding who the end customer in mind is actually interacting with the platform. So if it's your customer's customer, if it's in this case, the enterprises who serve the small businesses, really keeping that sort of at the front focus is what drove a lot of our success at Stax in our early days.
Mm, right. Awesome. So let's discuss this about the small business gap, because you have highlighted that how difficult it is for small businesses to access financial services, credit. What do you see as the biggest risk SMBs face today when navigating the traditional financial systems?
You know, there's a lack of education. So I think financial acumen is probably one of the big challenges that sort of exists. And it's not anyone's fault, right? If you're running a restaurant, you're focused on the restaurant. Your job is I got to make sure I have a staff. I have all my food available for the people. I'm focused on quality. I'm trying to deliver a new menu, whatever it may be for you. That's your focus. The last thing you're thinking about is how is my LLC or corporation set up? What's my tax ID number and the sales tax that I got to pay this month, right? You usually have an accountant or a financial person that's handling this stuff. It's just not the top of your mind. So when you do end up having to look for credit or a new merchant account or a new credit card, you actually just don't even know what you're looking for. Customer that the business is like, oh, what's your EIN number? And you're like, where do I go get that? Can you send me your business license? Okay, let me go find it in this file. Can you send me your last 2 years of tax returns? You're calling your tax accountant, right? You're doing all of this information to try to go gather across 15 different solutions, all these different tools, and you don't even know what you're doing. And then what happens is you get denied, and you get denied because you don't even understand what the person on the other side is looking at in your business. Maybe you're doing $100 million in revenue, but it comes from one customer, and you get denied because you have concentration risk. Maybe you have a great business, but you have a lot of debt on it. And so your debt to income ratio is not going to pass that. So there's a lot of these like financial, acumen areas that unfortunately business owners have not focused on, and they shouldn't. But it becomes tough because from an underwriter's perspective, it becomes a black box of decision making. And so they supply all this information and don't know why they get accepted, rejected, and then they're sitting there trying to figure out how do they improve their business, but they really just don't know. And I think that that's sort of the big thing that I would say that we have to do a better job of is educating that market. Speaking for the US for a moment, if you're familiar with like Credit Karma or Rocket Money or all the credit tools that came out that allow us in the US to see and manage our own personal credit. Like, hey, you didn't pay your bill on time, so your credit card went down. Hey, you have a lot of debt on your credit card, your credit went down. They made it easy for us to understand it. And that part doesn't exist in small businesses. It's you just find out, you get a letter, it says 1-800-55555, you are rejected. Call us if you want to learn more. And nobody knows any information of why it happens. And so I think bringing transparency to that process for both sides is a win. And then allowing the small businesses to really be able to predicate and understand their business better is something that I think that, we need to focus a lot more attention on.
All right, fantastic. So great explanation. I feel all familiar steps that you mentioned that a small business struggle. But let's discuss AI in risk management, because your
Yeah.
company Worth is building an AI-powered platform that integrates compliance, onboarding, and underwriting. How does AI change the risk landscape for small business financing in both in terms of opportunities and potential pitfalls?
Yeah. So to your point, there's both sides of it, right? So one, I think you start off with what you said. So managing two businesses, I think the beauty of AI and large language models is you can process a lot of information quickly, right? So I think the first thing you think about is in business underwriting, let's just say there's a pizza shop and a online shoe store. $10,000 of inventory are very different for both places, right? The pizza shop, if the electricity goes out, that $10,000 is worth $0. If it's $10,000 in shoes that you own, and Michael Jordan wears those shoes, all of a sudden the value of those go up. So you can't compare $10,000 of balance sheet income the same, because they're very, very different businesses. The beauty of AI is that you can actually break down tons of P&Ls, information, and look at two wildly different businesses with the same denominator in mind without having human interaction. And so the first thing is just the power of processing information has been very, very big for AI to bring to the level. The second thing is you can look for alternate pieces of data and alternate ways to derive at the same decision. And so AI can, and predictive and generative AI can help you parse through the information and provide you alternative reasons why you should approve or should deny this information. So yes, they have a lot of debt, but look how quickly their business is growing. Look, like there's just ways that you can have an interactive conversation with an underwriter wildly differently from an AI perspective than you historically have. And so I think there's just a huge wave of being able to process this information, great amount of information that's coming more and more readily available, and to be able to actually make decisions in a quicker manner. You mentioned the pitfalls, and the pitfalls are also very real, right? So when you think about the compliance side of underwriting, so there's things in regulation which are known as like KYC, which is know your customer. So how do I make sure that Boris is the one signing up, that this is Boris typing the information in, and that this ID is really Boris's ID and it's not a fake or a synthetic ID or fraudulently stolen information. And so you're seeing a huge wave of fraud increase, and this increase with a lot of the deep fake AI learnings, the being able to have great imagery. So I think at the same pace of the acceleration that's happening, both sides have to get better. And I'd say there are a lot of great tools that are out there now really focusing on ensuring that the things like deep fakes, synthetic IDs, fraud scores are starting to become really, really prevalent. Everything from keystrokes, so how quickly do I type, to what's the IP address verification, to two-factor authentication. Those are all the things that we may know of. But then even further understanding, document verification and OCR verification, of making sure that this wasn't embedded or a signature was added on top at a later time frame. So there's a lot of tool sets that AI is really pushing to the front to be able to drive that.
Mhm. All right. So I would like to ask you a personal point of view. What are the major misconceptions in this field of credit underwriting for small businesses that you kind of strongly disagree with?
I think that most enterprises and or folks overcomplicate their own process, right? So I think a lot of times they create rules that they think add value. Now, I'm not saying that those edge cases may not be the case, but as we continue to be in this market, you see people that have built full solution sets with so many edge cases that it becomes very, very cumbersome to go through. And I believe that the big thing that I just disagree with, that having risk in your portfolio is a good thing, right? If you're losing $0 a year because of risk, that means you're not growing your business fast enough. That means you're not taking on any risk. There's a healthy amount of risk that is involved in every business. Doesn't matter who you are, right? And so you have to be able to understand that that's part of doing business. And businesses that have $0 of risk are just not up to their full potential. And so I just think one of the things that people really have to look at is, how do you create a better experience with the customer in mind to get through your process quickly, get through your flows quickly. And if you can enable that, and yes, you're going to have fraud risk. And yes, you're going to have issues in 1 out of 100 customers or 2 out of 100 customers. But that is okay if the other 98 can cover that risk and profitability. And that's the way that the world, that chief risk officers should really think about themselves as driving revenue, not saving dollars. And if you can find that style of individual in your organization that really pushes that, I think that's a big, big portion that I truly believe in.
All right. So let's discuss how you guys at Wars rethinking this process to make it more inclusive and accurate. And because any fintech dealing with compliance and underwriting has to balance innovation with regulatory requirements. So how do you ensure that world moves fast without creating a new risk for customers or regulators?
Yeah, look, I think regulations are part of the journey, right? I think there's so many new things around AI, GDPR, data security, privacy that everyone's trying to navigate. And so I think compliance is still at the forefront of what we do. Compliance security are still going to always be there, and working with the governmental entities is part of our journey. We directly integrate with the IRS, we directly integrate with the corporate houses in the UK, and to do that, we have to play by those rules. And so I think that most areas want to see improvement. Most governments want to see improvement, but regulation and those things are sort of at the top of our mind. And I think right now, fraud, security, and data privacy is near the top. All right. And so I think that we see and spend a lot of our time making sure with our compliance teams that those things are met. And then ensuring that the right people are getting the right style of credit. And so we don't really look at it as a hindrance. There may be some rules that can be rewritten in some areas that are there, but I think those guardrails and frameworks are something that you have to abide by, but there are ways to be able to create better experiences, right? So for us at Worth, we pre-fill applications, right? So if you ever typed in your name or you type in your address and Google pre-fills all the fields for you, we do the same thing for financial applications. Now, the customer still has to verify that that's the right information. They still have to click next. So it meets the compliance needs, but creates a better customer experience that they only had to type in one thing. And so there are places where you can really start to create better experiences while still staying compliant.
Fantastic. So you mentioned that Worth raised an impressive 25 million seed round. What do investors see in your approach that's different kind of from other fintechs trying to modernize the SMB financial landscape?
Yeah, look, I mean, Sunir and I had obviously a great success in the history. So I think we know the space very well. So I think we have a great management team, and some of that obviously plays a role into to raising capital. But I think just a sheer opportunity, right? There is not a single financial organization you can listen to every 10K or quarterly call, doesn't matter globally, that isn't talking about digital onboarding. Every single person that is serving businesses wants to create a better onboarding experience and a more consumer-like feeling because they're getting their butts kicked by new and upcoming fintechs and new digital online bankings and new different like I can use my iPhone and sign up for an Apple Wallet credit card in 30 seconds. Right? Why can't we deliver that same experience for businesses and financial applications? And so all of these executives and CEOs are coming to the table and saying, we are leaving so much money on the table. We need to focus on this. And so when our investors look at the opportunity that sort of exists in this space where people are trying to solve it, nobody's cracked that code yet. And with all the information that frankly has become digital post-COVID, you think about all the Secretary of States, all of the international areas, they went all online, right? Before, if you needed to pay your taxes, you walked in and handed a check in time. If you needed a business license, you walked in and you signed with the Secretary of State within here to be able to pay your bills. All of that's digital now. So you have all of this digital information that just hasn't been consolidated. And so, our investors see a great area, a great marketplace, a great team, and a great opportunity where we see sort of the world moving.
It's a great explanation. So, looking ahead 5, 10 years, probably nobody has a kind of crystal ball, but what risk and opportunities do you see in the financial infrastructure for small business, and how do you envision Worth shaping the future?
Yeah, look, I think one, we want to be able to solve the onboarding for the enterprises, but we do think that the long tail viewpoint is, can we create a business credit score that's globally accepted that says, if Boris's LLC has a 750, you can trust the word score that the 750 is reliant on all of the other things. And so if we can create enough of a network effect with the enterprises adopting the solution set, being able to enrich it with their own information, but then being able to have a predictive area to at least solve both ends of the spectrum, right? Of like, hey, don't give them any credit or for sure approve them. Maybe only concentrating on the middle by having a worth credit score for businesses. We really believe that that's sort of the future wave of trying to get this quick, rapid response rate, which we know that all people and the consumers are driving for. And so our vision is to have a global standard version to be able to look at businesses, compare them quickly, and be able to make, quick decisions.
Fantastic. So let's summarize our interview for someone who is listening to it and would like to walk away with one or two major takeaways. What would that be?
Yeah, I'd say, look, if you're a large enterprise, serving a small businesses, I think just focusing on that customer and that onboarding of that customer is very, very key. So, how do you create a better experience for them? Don't just think about the back office improvements of a match rate or this tool or that tool internally, but how do you create a better experience to drive more revenue? So that'd be the first thing. And then the second thing is, how do we create a consumer-like experience across all places we touch? I think that the end in mind has to be the end customer broader than just the solution sets that you're solving for. And so I think in the financial world, we at Worth want to create a consolidated viewpoint that provides all of the data sets for you to be able to do, but you don't have to be the smartest person on every single thing. Rely upon the tool sets, lean into the AI, lean into the data sets that exist out there, because I think that you can make really, really strong and quick strides in your business.
Mhm. All right, Sal, thank you very much. That's were all my questions. Perhaps if I forgot to ask you something that you feel important for our audience, please go ahead and.
Yeah, look, no, I appreciate being on here, Boris. Really appreciate the time. I mean, if you guys want to learn more, worthai.com, you can feel free if you're a business, or at least an enterprise that serves businesses, check us out for any one of the areas that are there. We're really excited to continue. We support, as mentioned, over 186 countries. So wherever you're listening from, if you're a local blank, a community, supporting small businesses, we're definitely a solution set to look at, and happy to hopefully connect with a lot of you.
All right, thanks again, and I wish you a great success with your Worth company. It's a very, very meaningful name. So I hope it will be even bigger success than your first one.
Thank you so much, Boris. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.